everyone, it's Maddie. Welcome back to my channel, and today's video I'm going to be delving into more of the definition of pre-bolusing and how I've used it to my benefit and maybe how you could possibly use pre-bolusing to your benefit to achieve more stable blood sugars and less nasty blood sugar spikes. Now, pre-bolusing doesn't always work for everybody. I will explain that shortly here, but I will give you the basic definition of pre-bolus. So a pre-bolus basically means that you're injecting your insulin anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes before you eat to most accurately mimic the primary insulin response of a non-diabetic. Well, what do you mean by that? Well, in a non-diabetic, their pancreas will actually secrete some insulin in response to them getting ready to eat or them in anticipation of eating food. Now, I'm not sure how their body knows this or how our bodies actually knew how to do this. I don't know if it's something to do with like smelling food or your brain making the connection that what you're going to be eating soon, and that kind of stimulates like hormones in the pancreas to start secreting all kinds of insulin. Now, obviously, as type 1 diabetics, we do not secrete enough insulin or any insulin at all to cover this. So in order for us to kind of mimic a non-diabetic's pancreas in response to seeing food or anticipation of eating food, the best thing we can do is give ourselves our injection or do our bolus on our pump a certain amount of time and then begin eating to allow the insulin to enter the bloodstream first. Before all the carbs get digested. It kind of allows the carbs and the sugars to be beaten into the bloodstream. So it allows some insulin to be in there, but not too much. Now, in order to do a pre-bolus, you have to get the timing right, and that's going to be different for everybody. It may be different. Ladies, I notice I need certain less or more pre-bolus around the time of my monthly menstrual period. You may need less of a pre-bolus if you're going to exercise, or you may need less of a pre-bolus if your meal is heavier in fat or protein. Protein can spike your blood sugar later on, but I primarily use pre-bolusing for super heavy carb foods and days I know that my hormones aren't going to affect my blood sugars, or I'm not going to exercise. So you have to learn the timing and know that different timings are going to work better for different people. The timing I stick with is about 20 minutes. And this only really applies if you're using rapid-acting insulin. So, like if you're using Humalog or Novolog or Apidra, Fiasp, I'm not sure if those are the same insulins, Admelog, and there's other fast-acting insulins. Any of those super rapid-acting insulins, you can, wait 15 to 30 minutes and you're good to go. I find 20 seems to work really well for me. And then there are other instances where I don't pre-bolus at all. And then there are some instances where I've pre-bolus 30 minutes and have it work out quite well, especially if my meal's super duper heavy carb, for example. If you're using regular insulin, which is short acting, it is a little bit slower. They do recommend pre-bolusing 45 minutes to an hour-ish before you plan on eating. Again, I don't know a whole lot about regular human insulin because I do not use regular human insulin. I use rapid-acting analog insulin, Humalog, and I've been able to guess and watch my CGM and know what my body does in response to pre-bolusing with Humalog. It may be different for people who are on Novolog too. I don't know. It all depends on you and it all depends on your situation. So what are some of the benefits? So obviously you're going to limit the spike in blood sugar. So because the insulin got into the bloodstream first, it's going to be more willing and meet the timing right to take whatever sugar's in there and move it to the bloodstream. Because if you have too many carbs flooding in and too little insulin, you're going to result in a blood sugar spike or high blood glucose. But in turn, if you pre-bolus too long or you pre-bolus for a meal that isn't super heavy carb or you're going to go exercise, the insulin is going to be way higher than the sugar is going to meet and you're going to cause a low blood sugar and you're going to crash. Now, like I said, it works in different situations for different people. But people who should not be doing this is people that have gastroparesis. Gastroparesis basically means they have slowed digestion and stomach emptying. If they pre-bolus, they can have severe lows that last for hours and hours and hours because the insulin is way faster than their body can actually digest. So if you have gastroparesis, Do not pre-bolus. Follow your doctor's instructions on what to do best for you. I do not have gastroparesis. I do not have a problem with digesting my food. So pre-bolusing really isn't a bad thing for me. Now, if you're on a CGM, you could do a couple other things too. You can watch your trends, obviously. And because if you pre-bolus, you might find for a certain meal, pre-bolusing 20 minutes works great. You might find for other meals, don't pre-bolus, or you're going to end up going low. And for certain meals, you might find that 20 minutes is just too short, but 30 minutes is perfect. That 10 minutes can make a world of difference between you having a blood sugar of 200 versus having a blood sugar of like 130. It's amazing what a little bit of time can do, and a little bit of time for the insulin to work faster than the carbohydrates can do to help reduce blood sugar spikes, keep more stable blood sugars, and maintain good A1C values overall. Now, with pre-bolusing, it's going to be kind of an experimental thing. You're going to probably experiment a few times, and you're going to find that your blood sugars still skyrocket, or you're going to find that your blood sugars will plummet and you've done it too much. Now, it's going to take some time, like I said, to figure out your own body. It took me at least a month to a month and a half to figure out my body for pre-bolusing for the most part. And even now, I'm going through a situation where I'm constantly riding low, and I found that I'm eliminating my pre-bolus, and I'm not going low anymore. Kind of crazy that my body is going through this certain period of time right now where pre-bolusing is driving and crashing me. So I'm no longer pre-bolusing, and that's working fine. Weird as heck. And I'm eating super duper heavy carb stuff too. So my body is going through a very, very insulin sensitive period right now, and that's okay. Your body will go through periods of more insulin resistance, more insulin sensitivity, but I do definitely recommend pre-bolusing for anybody, unless you have gastroparesis. So, again, it all depends on you, depends on what you want to do, what you're willing to experiment with, but if you're going to try pre-bolusing, and you don't have a CGM, keep a close eye on your meter or finger stick every, hour if you have to figure out for certain meals. And then once you get an idea how your body responds to a meal, log it or keep a mental note knowing that, hey, this meal is a no-go for pre-bolusing. This meal needs at least 30 minutes pre-bolusing, and this meal I can get away with 15 to 20 minutes, not a problem. So I swear by pre-bolusing to get a lot of benefits for as far as more stable blood sugars, but it isn't the perfect solution for everybody, nor is it the perfect solution at all. There's other things I do, obviously, to keep my blood sugars in line, basically nailing my insulin to carb ratios, keeping basal rates good and healthy, eating foods that are low on the glycemic index, all those things I talked about in my How to Obtain a Good A1C video. That's what I also apply in terms of pre-bolus. Now, what do you do to kind of wait in the time that you're going to pre-bolus? Sometimes I get a little impatient when it comes to pre-bolusing or doing things with the pre-bolus, or you're like, oh my gosh, I'm super hungry, I want to eat now. What I do is keep an eye on my CGM, make sure things are staying stable, and make sure that I'm not skyrocketing, dropping whatever from the pre-bolus. But what I do typically, if I can prep my meal in the 15 to 20 minutes that I'm going to eat, especially if I'm at home, if I could prep it within that 15 to 20 minute time frame, I know that's something that I can do to entertain myself for 15 to 20 minutes. For me, sometimes I'll hop on a YouTube and watch a quick YouTube video, listen to some music. I always make sure I set a timer on my phone or my watch or my phone to make sure that it goes off and that I'm aware that my pre-bolus time is up and it is time for me to eat. So that is ways you can get around kind of the patience struggle with pre-bolusing. Now, if you're out to eat in a restaurant and it is harder to pre-bolus, I normally don't pre-bolus. What I instead do is take my insulin right beforehand and I eat the stuff on my plate that is lowest in glycemic index and work my way to the more heavier carb stuff. For example, if I go out to Chili's and I have an order of baby back ribs and some broccoli and potatoes, for example, I will start with the broccoli and meat first after I give myself the insulin injection, and then I will move my way to the potatoes. And by the time I get my way to the potatoes, because I take my time and enjoy my food, a pre-bolus time is kind of already up. It's 15, 20 minutes have passed already, and a lot of some of the insulin is starting to work now, so you probably could consume those potatoes, no problem. So there's a way to do around that too. I'll talk more about eating foods in a certain order later that I found works for me. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed today's video and you got a better idea what pre-bolusing is, how I kind of work my way around it, some of the precautionary steps you need to take, and if this gave you an idea as to how to keep more stable blood sugars. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up. Feel free to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. We are so close to 100 subscribers, and I am getting so excited to share my diabetes diagnosis story with y'all. Until next week, for more videos, take care, God bless, be kind, spread positivity, and be thankful, and give pre-bolusing a try if you'd like. Bye, everyone.